Hi everybody, it's David Fleming here from the Toronto Realty Group, and welcome back to the Last Honest Realtor. Now, this is the second edition of the Last Honest Realtor podcast, which means, of course, there was a first. Thank you so much for everybody that watched and listened to the inaugural podcast. It's pretty good feedback overall. Interesting point, a friend of mine said to me, "So you think you're the Last Honest Realtor?" And he did it in the voice from the character on Seinfeld, I believe was played by Lloyd Bridges. Do you remember where Jerry bought his dad a t-shirt that said #1 Dad? And then the Mandelbaums, right? That was the name of the characters, the family. They walked around and said, "You think you're the #1 dad?" So yeah, a friend of mine said, "You think you're the Last Honest Realtor?" And I thought, I hope people know that it's meant to be tongue in cheek, right? Now, I will say, as I have regularly done so over 20 years, yeah, there's 75,000 agents and maybe 10,000 of them are the ones, professional doing the business. And, my colleagues, the other ones doing podcasts, as I said last time, there's a couple of them, good ones that I listen to, but then there's a whole lot of other stuff. What I want to do and continue to do is have the conversations that a lot of other people don't want to have. And one of those conversations today, as you might have seen from the title, is how did the technique of underpricing begin? And so I don't think that underpricing is a bad thing. Right off the bat, I'm going to lose a few people, right? I'm going to make some enemies, and I'm going to have some people that don't want to be friends because they're the folks that have walked into my open house. Agents, if you're listening, have you ever had this? You're doing an open house that's listed at $9.99 and somebody walks in and they say, "So it's $9.99 then?" And you say, "Yes, it is." And they go, "So you'll sell it to me today for $9.99 then?" And you're like, I know this person got up in the morning and they're like, "I will like to have an argument today." And you say, "Well, there is an offer date," and they throw some papers down and they go, "Well, then I'm not interested." And I think I did a British voice there because the last time I did an open house, it's probably like in 2012. Yeah, somebody did that. I was at 143 Riverdale. Remember that exact instance. Woman threw the feature sheet. So people maybe don't like underpricing, right? And for those laymen that are listening, what are we talking about? Underpricing a listing. If you've got a property and you think it's worth $1 million, you're not probably listing it at $1 million. Now you might, depending on the market and whether or not you're in the housing market, in the condo market, or let's say freehold versus condo. It depends on if it's a buyer's market, if it's a seller's market. But let's say, for argument's sake, you're in a busy spring market in Toronto in 2024 where supply is falling behind demand, as it always does, and you've got $1 million house. You're pricing it at $799. With an offer date. Now, I've got some notes here. I would say that the technique of underpricing goes hand in hand with the offer date. And again, for laymen, I'll say this. You take your $1 million house, you list it on Tuesday at $799, and you set an offer date for the following Monday, right? The idea there is that you're going to get offers, or as my friends in finance tell me, or I would say my friends in the world of investment banking, it's actually called a bid. An offer is the listing itself. Those guys always say, "I want our bid to be," and then they'll say, "We respect the offer," and they mean the listing. They're just kind of showing off that they're smarter than we are because they actually are and our terminology is wrong. But you're trying to get as many bids or as many offers, offer to purchase, on the scheduled offer date. And the thinking goes that if you have multiple offers, you can leverage and push the price up to over what the intrinsic value of the property is. And that's the theory behind it, and it works. But the question today that we want to ask is, how did the technique of underpricing begin? So I had a reporter years ago come to me, and she said, "We want to do a story about the origins of underpricing." I said, "Cool, happy to help." She said, "So, when did it start?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, you got in the business in 2004. Like, how long after did it start?" And I said, "It was already there when I started." And she seemed equal parts like frustrated, but also surprised. Frustrated because now she had to go digging because I couldn't answer it for her, but surprised because she thought, wait a minute, this has been going on since 2004. So in order to understand the origins of underpricing in real estate, you have to understand the psychology of pricing. Now, I wrote a blog post about this, I want to say in February or March of 2024, the psychology of real estate pricing. And I started out by just talking about the psychology of pricing in general. Now, there's a reason that things end in the number 9, right? I have this stat here. Over 60% of all prices in stores end in the number 9. Prices ending in 99 cents are more powerful because we're conditioned to think 99 cents is a bargain, no matter how small the savings. Now, we know that, right? Now, some people refer to the left to right theory of pricing. You read left to right. So 2.79, right? They're increasing as they go. That sounds lower than $2.80, right? Or $2.99 just sounds like it's less than $3. So interesting stat here. It says one American clothing retail experimented by changing the price of a dress from $34 to $39. So they increased the price, but because they had the 9 in there, sales increased by over 30%. We're conditioned to not like that 34. Now, maybe if it was $33.99, but in this case, they increased the price to $39 and they increased sales. So higher prices ending in a 9 will actually outperform lower prices on the same product. And that's, as I said, this alluring thing about the 99-cent pricing that makes it feel like a deal. So it's trackable as far back as 1875. At that time, a paper called the Chicago Daily News was founded. This paper sold for 1 cent. The problem was there weren't enough pennies in circulation. So the owner of the newspaper went to the retail stores who advertised in his paper and asked them to lower the prices on their goods by 1 cent. The merchants agreed to help the paper out. Then the newspaper owner had barrels of pennies shipped in from Philadelphia to provide the circulation of change. At the same time, distant merchants began shipping their products to the Windy City via the new railroads, giving the local stores competition. But those Chicago store owners noticed that the odd pricing helped them to undercut these new competitors. The odd pricing actually increased sales. Now, I took this from, I believe it was a CBC article. Apologies, I just printed it off for this podcast. But the point is, there is a psychology to pricing, right? You've got the left digit effect, as I mentioned. You have odd versus even pricing, charm pricing, prestige pricing, price anchoring, decoy pricing. So consider when you go to a store like Winners and it says $20, but it says compare at $30. It says compare at. It doesn't say mark down from. But that's this price anchoring, right? That's this comparison pricing where you see 30 and you see 20 and you think it's a deal. And now I believe it was Target or Target that got in trouble for this, because if you're going to say $20, compare at 50, you'd better find a place that has that for 50. So in the blog post I wrote about the psychology of pricing, I mentioned a couple of examples. So, and this is just kind of background to understand what we're going to talk about as to the origins of underpricing. So say that I'm listing a property for $1 million. I'm not listing it for $1 million. I'm listing it for $999,000, $900,000. I'm not listing it for $999,000, $999,000 because I feel that cheapens the offering. I believe that $999,000, $900,000 is the best price. When I'm above $1 million, I lose the $900,000. So if I'm at $1,299,000, it's not $1,299,000, $900,000. It's $1,299,000. Now, as you climb the ladder, you start to go with the 5. For example, $3,295,000, as opposed to $3,299,000, as opposed to $3,299,900, or God forbid, $999,000. So I wrote this blog about the psychology of pricing. If you want to Google it, you could probably find it. I believe it was called The Psychology of Real Estate Pricing. And I also mentioned I don't like to use even numbers. I wouldn't price a property at $650. I'd price it at $649,000, $900. Then there are some people that want to do, say you're pricing on the quarter, $625. We do $624,000, $900. We don't use 888s, which is a cultural thing. We would never use 777s. We wouldn't use, I saw a listing, and I think I have it here. Property was listed for $631,917. You're trying to be different, maybe, but I think it backfires. I think that's a weird price, and it makes people kind of feel awkward, and I had said in here, differentiation can often backfire. So if you have 2 listings come out around $600,000, one is $599,900, the other is $602,222. I don't think that differentiation is going to help. So can we agree that there is a psychology to real estate pricing? Yes. So then let's talk about why we underprice and how that plays out in the market. So if you want to go back to this question of when did underpricing begin, I started in real estate in 2004. I have in front of me a listing right here, 351 Moore Avenue in Leaside. November 2004. It says, offers presented Monday, November 22nd at 6 p.m. Please register by 4 p.m. So this is almost 20 years ago. And it's the same verbiage we would use today. Offers presented Monday, November 22nd at 6 p.m. Please register by 4 p.m. So let's go back to 2000. 57 Vanderhoof Avenue, listed for $329, sold for $365. Offers welcome April 19th at 8 o'clock p.m. Wow, they're doing offers at 8. Now that's 24 years ago. Let's go back to April of 1998. I would have been just getting my headshots for high school graduation with those sick sideburns. And we have here for 281 Besbro, it's going to make you sick when you hear it sold for $548,000. Offers, if any, April 26th evening. Now, the funny thing about these MLS listings is a lot of these are pieced together because in 1998, did we have the internet? We had dial-up, yeah. But a lot of the words are shrunk, and that's just how people used to write. You wouldn't put bedroom, you would put BDRM. So this says evening, it says EVENG, like you're saving a lot of characters by taking in a couple vowels, right? So offers, if any, April 26th evening. So you're saying what? Offers, if any. We don't know if we'll have any, but if we do, we're going to do it on this date. Ergo the holdback, right? Now let's go back to 1996. It's November. I bet I'm listening to a combination of Pearl Jam, Offspring, and Green Day. November of 96, I would have been in grade 11. Oh my God. So November of 96, this is 46 Rumsey Road, listed at $399,900, sold for $448. And it says no showings until November 25th. No offers until November 26th. So if they listed this on November 25th and it's sold on November 26th, you might call that today a soft holdback. But the irony is they listed it on November 20th. They didn't have showings till the 25th. Now you can't do that today. Current rules say you have to be able to show the property within 24 hours or it can't be on MLS. But the point is, all of these are examples of offer dates. And this, to me, is what's exciting. Many of you might hate this, but to me, this is exciting because if we're trying to trace back the origins of the offer dates, we can see that it's been going on here. I went back as far as 1996. And I suppose if I wanted to, I could have gone back further, but I think you get the picture. The idea of having a date for offers is what brought about, you ready for the connection? The marketing ploy of underlisting. Now I'm going to do you one more. We underlist because we have offer dates. Why do we have offer dates? Supply and demand. It's simple. If you have more demand than supply, it makes perfect sense to have a date for offers or bids, let's say. So if there is a market, and it's true of basically any market, independent of price. And this is, of course, why prices have gone up. But if you have a house in Leaside, and I'm using Leaside just because I chose it for today. You have a house in Leaside right now. Irrespective of price, 95% of the city would be interested, right? Except for people living in bigger, better, more expensive houses. Okay, so then we know that price is set by the free market, by supply and demand. And that's what pushes prices up. But if you have a house that, let's say, is around $400,000, if you think there's going to be 15 people that want to see it, well, that's why you want to make sure that the first person that runs through there doesn't go, okay, here you go, 400,000. Now, the public wants that. Part of the public, I should say. I've heard a lot of critiques of the system that we have, and it's not really a system, but the business practices of setting an offer date, of underlisting, and critics will say, hey, if someone sets their price at 400, they should have to accept that. Okay, no, I don't agree, right? Whether you want to compare this to an auction or whether you want to compare this to, whatever it is that eBay is the classic example that people come up with. And of course, there are differences between eBay and real estate. I won't get into all that. But the point is, if you say, here's my offering, right? Here's my property. This is the starting point, which is effectively what you're doing when you have an offer date. I think that's fair, and that's born of supply and demand. So you have to remember that when you've got a property that is going to have more buyers than there is products, right, which is one house, the supply and demand behooves you, it motivates you to go ahead and set an offer date. Now, again, going hand in hand with this is the idea of exposing the property to the market. So you've got a property coming out. You want to have it up for 6-7 days to be able to get everyone through. And if you were a seller and you really wanted to pat yourself on the back, you could say, well, I'm being fair. I'm not going to accept the first offer because I'm being fair and I want everyone to have a chance. Great. So you're putting the property on the market. You are allowing everyone to get through during that time you want to expose it to market, and you have a set offer date. Now, what could you do to ensure you get more people? What could you do to ensure that you have leverage? List it for a lower price than it's actually worth. That is the origin of underpricing. And that's all the theory behind it. So when I got into the business, I remember offering on a bungalow, and I worked with a builder at the time, as every young agent does. And there was a bungalow and it was listed at $399. And we knew it wasn't going to sell for $399. But what was it going to sell for? $450? $450 is a lot. Could it sell for $455? Right? You see how the spreads, and it's funny because this particular house, I remember it sold for $460, and I think my client had bid $440. The idea of bidding $460 on it was absolutely ludicrous. It's 20 grand, man, right? You're building a house, you're selling it for $1 million. Okay, so instead of making 300,000, you make 280 or whatever the spreads were. But I also remember a semi-detached house in Leaside, and I keep saying Leaside, but this was on, I'm trying to picture it, Airdrie. I worked the open house, I picked up a buyer, and they wanted to make an offer. $399, there were 6 offers, okay? 6 offers at $399, and it sold for $422. So you've got to look now and you go, $399, what are the 6 offers? $422, $419, $414, $408, right? Like the spread was like this. Now on an absolute basis or relative basis, that's still a small spread. So when we started this, or when I started in the industry, yeah, you might see 6 offers. And I remember Mozo back in the day, it was such a hot building, $299. And I get a client to be like, I can go to $320 for this. There'd be 8 offers and it would sell for $330. 8 offers between $299 and $330, right? So it wasn't until I'd say, when did we see the first like 100,000 over list? Late 2000s. And I remember when it was very normal for a house to be listed for $499 and sell for $601. And that was absolutely crazy, right? $499, $601, over 100,000. Again, psychology of pricing. You have a 4 and a 6, so you think it's 2, but it's not. It's $499 and $601. So let me take a break there, guys, for 1 sec, and we're going to come back to that. Hey guys, sorry for the interruption. I swear it wasn't my idea. Chris bought and sponsored this time here on the podcast. Just kidding. He wants us to plug the Rolfe Road Fun Fair. It's on Thursday, the 13th of June at 4:30. It's at, of course, Rolfe Road School in Leaside. If you've got kids, bring them over. It's going to be awesome. And this year, the Toronto Realty Group is sponsoring the Sports Zone. That's what we named it. We're taking over the tennis courts. We've got all kinds of fun games for the kids. We've got soccer, we've got baseball, we've got hockey. You know that thing we did when we were younger at Canada's Wonderland? Throw a pitch and try to guess how fast it is? We have that. So bring your children or your inner child. Come say hello. Hope to see you there. Welcome back. So we are talking about the spread. We're talking about underlisting properties. We're talking about the spread between the list and the sale. And I had just said, I remember the first 100,000, right? And 100,000 out of 5 is 20% if you want to use the ratio. I don't even want to get into the people sold over asking, you know, those signs that go on top of the writers go on top of the signs. So sometime around, and I want to say this is, 2011, 12, 13, 14. Oh my God, can I have a 5-year window, guys? I'm sorry, I don't remember. I was doing an interview with Sue Pigg, who was the best real estate reporter, Toronto Star. I used to talk to her all the time. And I had a line, and I think she put it, I could probably dig up the article because it's so unlike me to have at the time cut out articles of newspapers. And the headline said, quoting me, 200,000 is the new 100,000. We were now seeing properties sell 200,000 over list, $599. And it would be like Picture a semi-detached 3-bed, 2-bath in the beach, right? $599 list selling for $810. 200,000 is the new 100,000. That was the line, or I think it said 200,000 over is the new 100,000 over. And it was like, this is madness. The prices people are paying. But what we started to get away from was the understanding of value to begin with. And here's where I would say, and I'm kind of jump ahead to my conclusion on my back of the napkin notes, is that if you want to talk about fairness, and you know me, if you've listened to any of my, or watched any of my, oh my God, I've done one podcast. If you've read my blog or watched my videos, you'll know that I believe in a sense of self-responsibility. And if you're the person bidding the list price on a property when there's 30 offers, it's not the market that's unfair. It's your lack of knowledge and your lack of experience. And to be perfectly frank, your lack of logic and reason. So again, if we go back and say, sold over asking, a metric that I hate. And when people will ask me, and sometimes when they're interviewing me for a listing, I'll say, I don't answer that question. Like they'll say, what is your average sale to list ratio? I say, who cares? If you want me to list every property at $1, sell it for $1 million, my list to sale ratio is like nearing infinity. So point being, if you took a house that's worth $1 million and you listed it for $499 and you sold it for $980, you got less than it's worth, but your sale to list ratio is almost 200%. So as we started to get into these, 2012, 13, 14, and you start to see all these houses sell 200,000 over list, which was also approaching 130% of list, what people forgot was that we were underlisting more. And I remember a colleague of mine said, there's a saying, there's no such thing as being too underlisted. And we'll come back to that. So as we started to see 100,000 over list is the new 200,000 over list, the public started to say, the market's going crazy. People are getting carried away. They're bidding 200,000 over. Really, we just started underpricing more. So if you had that house that you thought was worth $8, you weren't pricing it at $699 anymore. You were going for $599. So I don't think it's so much that the price is increased. I think as you climb higher up, if you're saying $499 sold for $600, it's $100,000 over, but that's 20% over, right? Some quick math. Now, if you have $2 million sells for $2.2, well, it's 200,000 over, it's twice as much, but it's only 10%. Do you see where I'm going with this? So I would say we started to get more aggressive. And of course, as the market changed, you would see these go up and down. When was the first time that you saw on MLS preemptive offers welcome? So the bully offer, and I don't want to veer too far off into this territory, but a bully offer was something that no one ever talked about. It just happened. Right? A bully offer, of course, is when you as a buyer, I actually have one in the queue right now for a house in Leaside. Oh my God, I said Leaside again, but it's true. So when I said, let's take that commercial break, it's because I wanted to check if we got it. Point is, we made a bully offer on this house because we don't want it to go to offer date because we don't like the idea of the upside on this. As a buyer, you want to be aggressive. Submit an offer ahead of the scheduled date and try to make sure no one else comes to the table. We didn't see this on MLS until the market turned in 2008, and people would still list low with an offer date, but they would say, bully offers welcome. And I thought the first time I saw that, this is the most insane thing I've ever seen. Bully offers welcome. You don't welcome a bully. Now, in 2024, you will say seller reserves the right to consider and review preemptive offers. That's standard. It's your way of saying I will or I won't look at an offer ahead of the scheduled date. But back in 08, when the market dipped, that was something we started to see. So the spreads are widening, as we mentioned. And what this now brings us to is the concept of strategic pricing. So work with me here. And if you've made it this far, you're a numbers person, or you just like the calming sound of my erratic, anxious voice. Let's say you've got a house and your target's $1.4 million. Okay? You listed at $1,399 with an offer date. Okay, on the plus side, maybe you trick the market. Maybe everyone assumes houses are selling 200 over. This has got to be 1.6. In reality, no. I think the good agents understand, why does this guy have an offer date? This doesn't seem to be worth much more than the list price. But if you've got kind of a standard product, right? Say right now I'm on the east side, I've got a knockout 3-bed, 3-bath semi with parking, done kitchen and everything. It's worth 1.4. Am I going to list it 1.299? No, it's not low enough, right? And here's again where some of you, and this is the whole, Last Honest Realtor idea behind it. I do want to have these conversations, and don't hate me. Like, am I explaining what happens in a magic trick? The magician literally has a key in his toes. That's what happens. It's nothing magic about it. He has a key in his toes, and then he dives into the water and, undoes the chains. So it's not rocket science, guys, but at $1.4 million, $1.299 is too high. $1.199. Okay, so if I'm at $1.199, am I signaling to the market that I'm $1.4 million? But what if you go $1.099? Then you need what we call lift. At $1.099, if you want 1.4, do you have enough lift at $300,000? So here's where the strategic pricing comes into play. In some markets, you could list this house at $999. That idea, you can never list too low. And the market might take it. You might have so many offers, right? Let's say you have 30 offers on this, that the person that really did think it was worth 1.4 comes in at 1.44. And then they're close to someone at 1.42 and someone at 1.43. And I know the public doesn't love when we say this, but yes, we take the top 3 and we send them back for more money, greedy people, right? Well, no, usually you're saying to people, if we're going to be fair again, is this your client's best offer? So here's an old adage. This is my client's best offer, unless we're not the highest, in which case I'd like to add more money. We all say that, right? So I just sold a place on the list side where I said to the agent, is this their best offer? They said it's their absolute best and final. We took the higher offer. After I told that agent, do you think she said, okay, great, thanks? No. She said, I can't believe this. I don't know why you didn't let me improve. You said it was your client's best and final. People play these games over and over, and the public's always going to say, we don't like you sending people back until they're in that situation. They're in second place. They want to improve. So again, if you think we're at $999 list for a 1.4 house, we've got 30 offers. Yes, it's got potential for bidding to get out of hand. And I wouldn't call it a bidding war because I hate that term, but I would say that maybe you have the top 3 people and somebody buys it for 1.475. Depending on the market, that could absolutely backfire. I'm going to give you an example. Matthew and I listed a house. The clients paid $1.05 million 2 years ago. We listed for we wanted $1.1 million, right? And we listed at $899. So if you're at $899 for a house that you think is worth 1.1, 20 offers? No, we had 0. Yeah, we had 0 offers because the market seemed to say, I don't like this game that David and Matthew are playing. Oh, $899? Thank you. I can use my 2 eyes and I can see that this was purchased for $1.05 million. You're at $899. There's a lot of stuff out at $899. I don't need to line up and buy your house. Thank you. And we had 0 offers. Now, we terminated, relisted $1.149. We sold it for $1.125. So we surpassed our goal marginally, right? Clients, won't get into their personal story, but, they wanted out. They were like, we're great. We broke even, made some money, and lived rent-free for 2 years, right? Essentially because paying into the mortgage, right? But the point is at $899, we had 0 offers. When we had it at $1.149, we had an offer. Does that make any sense to you? So I'm saying that strategic pricing is more important now than ever, because in an absolute red hot market, you take February of 2022, you take March of 2017, you take any of these times where the market was on absolute steroids. Yes, there is no such thing as listing too low, but in a market right now, it can backfire. So again, I take the example of a recent listing I had. I'm going to make some notes here. I told my clients we need to list at 1.399. They said, we want to list at 1.499. I said, you can't, because we're going to get people bidding 1.5. There's a built-in obsolescence here. And again, I know I sound repetitive. Maybe I'm feeling vulnerable. Is it guilt? No, it's not. Again, people are going to say, I can't believe you're telling me that you're strategically underpricing to trick people. They have an agent. They have access to sales. They're the ones trying to assess value. We listed this at 1.399 because we needed the 1.5 buyers. And on offer night, we had 3 of them. 3 buyers offered 1.5. Had we listed at 1.499, like the sellers told me they wanted to, we wouldn't have had those offers. We had 9 offers on this house. And without those, we had 8 offers on this house. Without those 3 bids of 1.5, instead of 8 offers, we've got 5 offers. There's less leverage. We don't get the price that we got. So you can call it a gimmick if you want. You could say that it's a trick, and I'd say, respectfully, I don't know if you've bought or sold real estate in Toronto. And I'm trying to be as transparent and forthcoming as I can be, at the risk of having people say, no, this is a trick or it's unfair. But the last point I wanted to say is this. If you listed at $1, none of these conversations would be had, right? I tricked people because I listed at 1.399, knowing I'd get bids at 1.499, so that I could push the 1.7 person higher because there's more offers. It's not a trick, right? It's strategic. So let me rephrase that. I priced it at $1. Now is it a trick? No, it's an unpriced offering. And you see this in commercial real estate. You see this in other industries. So if I price something at $1, it would then be up to the buyers and the agents to determine the value. Now here's the rub. People would call you and say, what's it worth? And so when I price a property at anything with an offer date, you get phone calls, and it's 5 to 6 versions of the same thing. Hey, David, what are your clients' expectations? Hey, David, where do you see this ending up? Hey, David, what's your prediction for this one? Hey, David, what's this going to sell for? And me as a listing agent, again, I don't answer the question because it's not my job to do their job. And I think I'm a very helpful guy, but I'm not going to do that for them. But I also, again, if I said to somebody, well, it's going to sell for X and their client can't afford X, well, now I've lost their offer. And again, the public might say, oh, you've lost their offer, their dummy offer that has no chance. You mean now you're not tricking them? That's the system, right? And if I may, in my defense, say, I don't have a crystal ball. So I've got a listing at $1,099,000. And someone calls me and says, hey, David, what's this going to sell for? I don't know. What if I tell him 1.4 and then on offer night I get 1.3? He's going to come back and say my client could have bought it for 1.3. I can't believe you. So you've got to see it both ways. It would be irresponsible of me to start randomly throwing out ideas. Now, if they said, what's your client's expectation? And that's a favorite of mine. Again, I'm just not going to answer it. I don't know that we're in the business of making predictions and expectations and certainly divulging that on behalf of a seller client. But this is part and parcel of what I always come back to, which is that if you have an industry where the buyers don't have knowledge and they hire buyer agents that don't have knowledge, the buyer agents come to you and they don't know what to do. And they ask you and they expect you to do it for them. So in any other industry, the cream rises to the top, right? You know, the winners win. So if I've got a listing at $1,199,000 or $1,089,000 that's going to sell for 1.4, and it's pretty obvious, you can go on to MLS and look at what's sold and it all looks like it's going to sell for 1.4, and then somebody brings me the list price. It's not my fault for underpricing it. I sound like I'm pleading with the listeners and the viewers. Some of my friends listening to this are going to be like, wow, dude, you really softened in your old age. So let me leave it there, guys, for a couple of seconds, and I'm going to come right back with my final thoughts on this. Hi, everybody. We just loaded this week's Pick 5. This is on church lofts. I really think you're going to enjoy it. If you're not already a subscriber, please go ahead and click the link below to subscribe and to watch the video. It's going to be fun. Hey guys, welcome back, and I think that we have nailed it here. I think that we have answered the question, how did the technique of underpricing begin? And to understand this, we went back through the MLS archives, which I actually thought was really fun, as far as 1996, and saw evidence of an offer date. So the origin is essentially this, and connect these dots. You have the relationship between supply and demand in a free market. And where you have more demand than supply, you're likely going to have to expose the property to the market for as long as you can to get as many people to see it, because it's not inconceivable that you could have multiple parties wanting the property. So in order to expose the property for a certain amount of time, that necessitates the offer date. So those three things. Supply and demand tells us there's more demand than supply, ergo we want to expose the property to the market for a certain amount of time, and that necessitates the offer date. That's how we got to the point of offer dates. Now, the fourth part of that is that eventually agents started to realize, you know, I'm going to expose this to the market for 7 days, because of the relationship between supply and demand, I'm probably going to get 2 or 3 people interested. But if I listed it a bit lower, I think I might get 4 or 5 people interested, and I'm not worried about the price not going organically above what it's worth. In fact, I think this could be used to my advantage to get the price to go for more than the intrinsic value. That is how the technique of underpricing began. So from there, we started to see super underpricing. We started to see bully offers, and it brings us up to current where we have to sit down and analyze different strategic prices in tandem with the offer date to, of course, maximize our potential for the sale. That was fun. Glad we did that. I'm glad I went back to 1996 in the MLS archives because, of course, it got me thinking about being in grade 11. I think I'd rather be here right now, but I'm not sure. So, folks, thank you so much for watching on YouTube, listening wherever you get your podcasts. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on The Last Honest Realtor.